Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack a concept that, honestly, fundamentally rewires how we understand human excellence. If you've ever looked around and wondered why some people just seem completely unstoppable while others are constantly, spinning their wheels, well, you are absolutely in the right place today. We're exploring the principles of Psychotech Leadership. And the foundational premise here is just fascinating. The ultimate operating system for achieving anything great, it isn't raw talent, it isn't luck, and it certainly isn't privilege. It is, quite simply, inner discipline.
Okay, let's dive into this. Before a human being conquers the world, they must first conquer themselves. That captures the exact essence of our source material today. Every generation has its legends, right? The entrepreneurs, the elite athletes, the visionary leaders. But the invisible force that's actually driving all their visible achievements, it's self-mastery. It's that disciplined ability to govern your own mind, your emotions, and your habits under absolutely any circumstance. It is literally the bridge between just having potential and actually performing at your absolute peak.
So, let me ask you a question. What is truly sabotaging your potential right now? I know, it's a heavy question, but a really important one. Because according to this framework, most people do not fail because they lack opportunities. That is a total myth. They fail because they avoid discomfort. They fail because they're desperately seeking instant validation, they overthink their actions, and they just cannot control their impulses. Look, when you don't systematically train your mind, your own internal chaos becomes the primary roadblock to your success.
And this brilliantly illustrates the stark divide between those who struggle and those who succeed. Think about it. Average individuals generally live reactively. They're controlled by their moods, social conditioning, and that endless, exhausting pursuit of instant gratification. Winners, on the other hand, operate entirely differently. They live intentionally. They actually condition themselves to act regardless of their emotional fluctuations. Discipline becomes their absolute superpower simply because they've trained themselves to delay gratification.
So here is exactly how we're going to break this all down today. 1. The dopamine trap. 2. The science of discipline. 3. The Psychotech framework. And 4. The 108-day challenge.
All right, starting with Section 1, the modern dopamine trap and why we are engineered to fail.
Listen, we have to address the elephant in the room here. Today's world actively engineers us to fail. Between social media, instant entertainment, and just the endless pinging of notifications, our brains are literally being trained for reduced attention spans and shallow thinking. Now, what's really interesting about this is how perfectly it connects profound ancient wisdom to our very modern performance problems. For example, the Bhagavad Gita teaches that an uncontrolled mind is actually your greatest enemy. A distracted mind destroys your focus, it weakens your decision-making, and it amplifies your suffering. But a disciplined mind, that creates clarity, it builds serious resilience. Modern performance psychology is completely validating these ancient insights. If you can manage your dopamine and embrace a little temporary discomfort, you create long-term greatness.
Moving right along to Section 2, the science of discipline. Let's talk about rewiring your biological hardware. All right, here is where we pivot to the hard neuroscience. A lot of people think discipline is just, some personality trait you're either born with or you aren't. It's not. The crucial concept here is neuroplasticity. Your brain is highly programmable. Every single disciplined action you take actually physically reshapes your neural pathways. When you repeatedly choose execution over excuses, your nervous system adapts. Those elite performers who look like they're just naturally disciplined? Yeah, they aren't. They have literally conditioned their brain's circuitry through pure repetition. So discipline isn't magic, guys. It's a programmable neural pathway.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Psychotech framework. We're shifting from motivation to systems.
So what is Psychotech Leadership? It's basically the ultimate science of inner command. It's this incredible synthesis of psychology, neuroscience, emotional intelligence, and identity transformation. The core philosophy here is pretty straightforward. External success is strictly a reflection of your internal structure. If your mind is chaotic, well, your results are going to be chaotic. You really have to build yourself from the inside out. This is the definitive, concrete solution to that dopamine trap we talked about earlier.
The source material gives us a super robust framework that synthesizes perfectly into 4 progressive steps. Step 1 is self-awareness mastery. You can't improve what you don't observe, right? So you have to track your triggers. Step 2 is identity rewiring, which is literally changing how you view yourself at a fundamental level. Step 3 is discipline architecture. And finally, Step 4 is conscious execution, actually acting decisively despite fear, hesitation, or any kind of distraction.
Now, this is a real game changer, and it's where most people get it wrong. Discipline is absolutely not motivation. Motivation is a total myth that fluctuates with your mood and your energy levels. True discipline? That is system design. Winners rely on built-in systems. They create rigid routines, they set firm boundaries, they use accountability, and they structure deep work to completely eliminate distractions. By designing these systems, you drastically reduce your dependency on how you feel on any given Tuesday. You don't have to feel like it, you just execute the system.
Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 4, Rewiring Your Identity and the 108-Day Challenge.
Because at the end of the day, behavior always follows identity. If your internal software is running the code, "I am inconsistent," your actions are going to automatically align with that belief just to prove yourself right. You have to actively rewrite that code to say, "I am disciplined, I am focused, and I am unstoppable." Once that identity shifts, the subconscious conditioning takes over, and your daily behavior just restructures itself automatically. So let's map this out into an actual blueprint, the 108-Day Self-Mastery Challenge. This is exactly where all this theory becomes concrete action. It happens in 3 distinct 36-day phases. You've got awareness and detox, then discipline conditioning, and finally, identity transformation. Let's look at exactly how you transition from your current distracted baseline to elite execution. All right, here are your daily marching orders. In Phase 1, you are detoxing. You practice silence, you read for 30 minutes, you exercise, you meditate, and this is huge, no phone for the first hour after waking up. I know, suddenly that sounds like literally the hardest part of the whole challenge, but it is absolutely crucial for taking back control of your attention. Then, in Phase 2, you escalate. You install deep work sessions, strict goal tracking, and conscious nutrition to really optimize your energy. Finally, in Phase 3, you move to advanced self-control. You implement visualization, high-performance routines, and public accountability. Over those 108 days, these tiny repeated behaviors compound into a completely new identity.
Now, this challenge is actually modeled on warrior psychology. It closely mimics the conditioning of elite military forces. Why? Well, because true discipline isn't about what you do when things are easy, right? It has to function flawlessly even when total chaos strikes. It is all about remaining calm under uncertainty, acting purposefully under intense pressure, and sustaining execution during massive adversity. Doing this builds unbreakable mental toughness.
So what's the end result? When you complete this process, you become what's known as the self-mastered individual. You no longer seek out those cheap temporary pleasures, you value long-term growth. You fiercely protect your focus, treating it as your single most valuable currency. You adapt strategically rather than reacting emotionally. Ultimately, you become internally powerful and totally immune to the endless dopamine-driven distractions of the modern world. Look, technology will change, markets will shift, but the person who masters their inner world, they will always outperform those who are just tossed around by external circumstances. Because greatness is never, ever accidental. It is engineered through pure discipline and conscious living. The world outside only changes after the world inside is mastered. So here's my final question for you. Will you continue to let the external world and its endless distractions control you? Or will you step up, take command, rewire your brain, and engineer your own greatness? The choice is entirely yours. Thanks so much for exploring this with me on today's Explainer. Now get out there and start your 108 days.